Hey, I'm Steven with Kirby Woodworking. In this video, I'll show you how I made this Manitoba maple slab with natural red streak accents. Last year, me and my dad were driving around and we came across a big pile of logs. Now this guy was just selling it for firewood, so we decided to take a rather large chunk of Manitoba maple. It is a gamble. Whenever you take a Manitoba maple, you're betting on how much red fungus you're going to find in the piece. And lucky for me, there was a lot of red throughout this piece. So for the first table, we're going to use the end piece. We're not just going to stick with two live edges, we're going to stick with a whole live bottom as well. So we're going to have curvatures in all planes for this piece. To start it off, I'm going to use a 60 grit sandpaper and I'm going to clean up the exterior of this so I can see what kind of texture and pattern I'm going to have in the Manitoba maple log. There was a couple knots after it was all cleaned up, so we're going to be using some leftover Bloodwood I had from my guitar build. If you do want to see how I put together my custom guitar build, be sure to look at my previous videos where I combined solid Bloodwood and solid Wenge wood. So after I cut it into a rough shape on the bandsaw, I'm going to use sandpaper to clean it up on both sides. Afterwards, I'm going to be tracing it on to the piece exactly where I want it to be installed. I'm going to use an X-Acto knife to trace it. If you use a pencil, you're going to find it's going to be wider than what you need. That little bit of difference on the width of the pencil tip will make a world of difference when you actually inset this piece. So after I do my initial tracing, I'm going to do a couple more passes to make it a little more deep so I can really have a location to throw my chisel in so I have a clean cut straight down. After the tracing is complete, the next step is to use a router with a straight cutting bit on the bottom. I'm going to be taking this router to within 1/8 of what I marked out with the X-Acto knife. I'm going to set my depth to the proper gauge so I can fit my Bloodwood into that slot with around 1/8 of an inch protruding from the top. Once I get it close on all sides, I'm going to switch to using my chisel just to clean up the rough edges and to give me that exact cut straight line. If I were to do the chisel first, there would be too much material bulked in the middle, so that router helps to alleviate the pressure when I'm using the chisel so I can get a consistent straight cut. Now luckily the Bloodwood is a very good sanding material, so I take it over to the stroke sander and I'm able to get it flattened with the rest of the slab relatively quickly. Afterwards I'm going to take it through all of my sanding passes. Once again I'm going to start 60 grit sandpaper, work my way up to 80 grit, 150 grit, and 220 grit for this piece. In between every single sanding pass, I'm going to use a pencil and I'm going to scratch across the entire face of the piece where I want to sand. That's going to help me get a consistent sand across the entire piece. A lot of times you're going to leave this till the very end and you're going to miss places where you didn't sand as heavy on the 60 grit and you'll see those swirls from the sandpaper at the finish. Now the bottom of this table has varying elevations, so we're going to be setting this on a flat surface and then we're going to use a level so that we can properly cut the legs to the proper size. We're going to cut a grate so we have a shelf down below, and then from there it's going to be a lot of grinding and a lot of welding. Once we're complete the legs, we're going to put our attention back towards the table. So for the finishing, I'm going to be using an Osmo Oil High Gloss Finish, and this is a hardening wax that will penetrate into the wood and harden the wood itself. Other finishes will typically make a screed over top of the wood, and that's just a protective layer. So once that protective layer fails, the wood itself can be damaged. So this will penetrate and it'll give us a more durable product. On the back side, I'll be using a brush and putting a lot of material on there, leaving it for approximately 15 minutes before I wipe off the excess. Once I am complete, I will flip it over, and now that I'm working on a smooth surface, we'll be able to switch over from using a paintbrush to using a screed, so I can use less material and I can still put an even coat across the entire surface. That was just after one coat, so now we're going to put another 3 coats on top of that, and we're going to be using a buffer wheel after every single pass to get the full shine out of the piece. Thanks for watching our video on how we put together this side table. Now this is the first of 7 slabs that we cut from the same log. So we're going to be working on those other 6 projects in the upcoming video. So if you are interested to see how we transform those into tables, benches, and whatever else we can think of, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button.